Welcome to hashtag 52 Boundaries. And this week we are talking about the boundaries around mental health. And I am so delighted to have with me my friend, Sharon Chemello, who is a coach and the best-selling author of Emoji, Find Your Happy Face, which is all about strategies to deal with mental health issues. So welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So we're going to talk about mental health, and I just wanted to put a little bit of a frame around it. We're not going to talk about personality disorders or the kind of mental health issue that needs to be institutionalized, like the really severe forms of mental health issues. We're talking about the mental health issues that we all have, the anxiety, the depression, that we can experience every day, and that we think if we just watch Netflix or have a bottle of wine will go away.
Yeah.
But we both know that mental health issue is very much more prevalent these days. And they do say that it's 1 in 5 Australians who has mental health issues. And I know that you and I have talked about this, that since the pandemic, we would probably say that this number has changed considerably. It's probably more like 1 in 3.
Yes, I think so too. And also just to be aware that men have, the men in the age group between 15 and 45 have such a high mental health rate and suicide rate, which is very distressing.
Yeah. So what we want to talk about is the fact that there are two sides to mental health issues. And one is the person who is around somebody who has a mental health issue. And then, of course, the person who has the mental health issues. So we want to talk about how boundaries are affected in either case. So let's say if we're talking about, we're going to use Nina Brown's model again, soft, rigid, spongy, and flexible boundaries, and we'll refer to them at random.
Yes.
Let's start with the soft boundary. So let's say I am somebody who has mental health issues. If I have soft boundaries, what does that look like?
Yeah. So you're a people pleaser maybe. And I've been there. I've had some very, very soft boundaries. You're a yes person. You're going to say yes to most requests, even though, it might be overstepping your boundary. I'll refer to my notes occasionally. You can't keep a secret, because you're so itching for that recognition. A lot of it is about the needs, isn't it? The social needs need to be recognized and need to be liked. Yeah.
So when somebody has a mental health issue and with soft boundaries, they would tell everybody they have an issue. And then would that also include that they then expect the other person to manage that for them?
Yeah, I think they would expect the person to constantly allow for that. And I wrote a little piece in my book about a high school student who said, I can't do that, miss, because I have anxiety. And I said, oh, darling, let's talk about anxiety. So, yeah, and how even with anxiety, we need to fulfill, our goals and our commitments. Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, it's the ability to, when we then go into the more functional boundaries, it's the ability to recognize that I have an issue, but that I don't expect the world to take care of it. I take care of it myself. I ask for support.
Yes.
I'm not the one who says, again, it's not, you now have to do this for me. It's like, again, we are very good at outsourcing responsibilities, I think.
Yeah.
And we're being, and there's my fear, is that we're being educated into that.
I mean, I've had kids like that who have said to me in class, I've got ADHD, and I say, yeah, I know that. I've read that, but I still need you to be kind to Joshua, so that's where I have to, as a teacher, set that boundary for her, despite what she's dealing with.
Yeah. You have lots of experience with kids as a teacher, don't you?
Yes. And boundaries is a huge thing, as teachers, that we need to instill, that in this classroom we speak to people with kindness, we don't do the following things. We negotiate them. We come up with a list together rather than me, telling them the rules. We come up with the rules together because they know what is a good boundary. Yeah.
So again, so when we have rigid boundaries, we tell people these are the boundaries. This is how you will have to behave, either as the person being around somebody, I will not accept this behavior, and if you behave that way, I'm out. Or as the person who has the mental health issue, saying, and again, you need to behave around me like this, or I can't be around you. And it's about dictating. It's about demands. Whereas when you really want to set functional boundaries in any kind of context, really, you negotiate. You talk about what is possible, what isn't.
That's right. Yeah. And especially if you have someone in your life with mental health, all of this becomes so much more important. It's vital to establish boundaries together, to deal with everyday life, but particularly with mental health.
So if I'm around somebody, let's just stay with that. If I'm around somebody who's got mental health issues, then I would sit down with them. And again, if I have one, we talk about what works, what doesn't work, again, what's acceptable. If I have depression, and again, if we're talking really severe depression, or the depression that we, again, I mean, clinical depression is a whole different story, but we all have depression. I mean, I have days where I don't want to get out of bed.
That's right.
No. And there's a day where I actually allow myself. Now I live by myself, so it's easy. But if I were to live with somebody, I would say, look, I need a day in bed.
Yeah.
I really need to just reset myself and just, again, not necessarily watch Netflix and go, it's all good, but just be with myself, maybe journal a little bit, or, just do some meditation or whatever.
Yes.
But if I say to somebody, I'm going to go to bed, and then not come out for 5 days, and the other person is going around and going, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah, it's hard when you do live with someone, whether you are the person with the mental health issues. I mean, as you say, we all have mental health issues, but if one has more noticeable mental health issues, and I've been that person, and I've also been the person helping or dealing with the person with mental health. So either way, you need to negotiate, the rules of the household, the boundaries, just the same as you do in a share house, who's putting out the rubbish and who's doing the dishes. You need to also work around the mental health issues. If I've got to work on my computer over here, I can't have someone over there watching TV and with loud noise. We need to come to some agreement.
Yeah. We forget that mental health issues impacts everything, right?
Yes.
Our mental health is something that doesn't, flare up every now and then. Again, like we talk about anxiety and depression, and again, we are more volatile with these probably than we have in a very long time. And again, you talk to any generation and they've all had their traumas.
Yes.
But it's the ability to actually sit and say, you know what, this is what works, this is what doesn't work, and this is what impacts on me. I mean, we talked about this. There are certain conditions that no matter what kind of mental health you have, whether it's strong or not so strong, they just need to be talked about, right?
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to talk about it. And this is the big issue that, we've been dealing with over the last decade or so, is how much to share. And especially with social media, how much do you share publicly? And as coaches, we're being taught to share our vulnerable mental health issues to help others to see that it's okay to talk about it, even sometimes publicly, so that, we're kind of coming out and then people will see, oh gosh, that cheerful, confident person, is saying, I've had anxiety and depression, and this is what I've done. I've expressed this publicly, and people go, wow, you know, you have had anxiety and depression, and oh yeah, big time, rock bottom and all.
Yeah.
But here's the strategies that I used to come out of that or to deal with that better. And, you know, and they can work for you too. And then that way, you know, we normalize that conversation. And as some people say, reduce the stigma, because
Yeah.
it's the stigma that's difficult. And so often people who do take their lives or self-harm, it's the fact that they didn't feel they had someone to talk to about it. So,
Yeah.
you know, if we can open the conversation and make it accessible, that can go a long way. Yeah.
Yeah. We still have, again, we're getting into a situation, as in with a lot of places, where we've got the polarization. On one hand, there's almost this, again, I use the word very loosely, enabling of mental health issues. You know, again, you know, Miss, I've got these issues, and you've got to account for my anxiety. But on the other hand, we still have a whole lot of rigidity around mental health issues, which get worsened when we don't talk about them, right? Again, as you said, men are much more likely to commit suicide than women, because women often use their social support network to talk, whereas men just bottle it up and they you know, soldier on and they get through it, and they don't talk about it because there's still a lot of shame associated with struggle around mental health. You know, again, we're not supposed to be down. When, you know, we're all supposed to be, you know, it's a first world problem. You know, why would you worry about that? And it's minimizing it when in fact it could be life threatening for somebody. And so having the passion, the patience and the compassion for someone from that place of non-judgment is so important.
Yes. Yeah, it's the judgment that can really damage people, you know, like snap out of it or just do this or that, you know. You just thinking mad thoughts all the time. Think positive, you know. It's like I'm way beyond that, you know. I am, like you don't understand how far beyond thinking positive I am. So I need some professional help. And some understanding and patience.
Yeah. I saw this really great cartoon where somebody said, you know, like if we treated mental health issue the same way we treated physical illness, we would be having a very different approach. I mean, it's like the equivalent of when somebody has a mental health issue, saying to them, you know, like it's like saying to somebody who has a broken leg, oh, come on, you keep walking, it's going to heal.
That's right.
Keep walking. Just keep walking. It's going to go away. We wouldn't do that.
No.
But we do this with people who have mental health issues, and we're just going out of it. Or my favorite is when you watch TV, any kind of show, and somebody says, I'm struggling with something, or I'm having an issue with this, I'm sad about this, I'm starting to feel low, I'm starting to get anxious. The first thing they say is, let's have a drink. Whip out the alcohol in 5 seconds flat and say, we'll feel much better once you've had a glass of wine. Whiskey or whatever it might be. And it's like, no.
You might feel good for the evening, but you're going to feel worse the next morning. And I did that for a very long time. I drank a lot for a very long time, and definitely felt worse the next morning, and finally found myself a coach to deal with my relationship with alcohol, and haven't looked back. It's just been amazing. It's just been probably the biggest change I've made in the last few years.
You actually went to the cause. You didn't just treat the symptom, right? I mean,
that's right. Because usually it's not about the alcohol, it's about the underlying trauma issues, whatever.
So it's the recognition that we all have tools to medicate. You know, like I know that for me it can be food. I have to be mindful. I have to check, am I really hungry right now, or is this an emotional hunger? Am I starting to feel anxious or depressed or upset or whatever it might be, and then go, you know what, I'll start with a glass of water and see how I go.
That's right. And that's across the board too, whether it's food or alcohol or Netflix or scrolling through your phone, any addiction. Shopping,
anything.
We all know the term retail therapy, you know? Yeah. And then we come home from retail therapy and go, oh my God, did I really spend that much money? And did I really need all of that, you know? So then again, like the alcohol, you feel worse afterwards. It's a short-term gain.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, so for mental health issues, it's really important to set boundaries for ourselves as well, to saying, okay, it's acceptable for me to have one bar of chocolate. It's not okay to eat a whole, bag of them. Or it's okay to have one glass of wine, but from a place of, I'm not medicating it.
Yes.
I'm not doing it to suppress. I mean, it's very, I think, I grew up with a functioning alcoholic. So I know how easy it is to slide down that way. And I had a time where I realized that when I lived in Asia, that my tolerance of alcohol had gotten really high. And I just stopped. I just went, okay, so now I have an occasional glass of wine and that's done. But again, we all have our thing.
Yes.
For me, like food, and then, find your limits, find out what works for you. Yes. And then if you can't, find help.
Yes, that's right. So in other words, set yourself a boundary. If you find that you're breaking that boundary over and over, then find someone to help you to create that boundary and to stick to it. Yeah.
So what other impact do boundaries have on mental health? Because I just wanted to have a look at also, when we don't set our boundaries, how do other people's perceptions impact on our mental health? Because I mean, mental health has so many different aspects. Like one of the things that people really struggle with these days, for example, is gender identity, right?
Yeah, that's a big issue now. And there are so many people who will judge that one, same as I hear a lot of judgment on, the spectrum, oh, everybody's got ADHD or whatever, or autism spectrum. Everybody's changing their gender, when we know that it's a select few. But we hear about it because it's such a striking, change to our views, perhaps. But the kids who are going through that are also dealing with the mental health aspects of that. It's very difficult for them. And as we always say, it's not something you would choose. It's not something that you would choose. Oh, I think and then deal with the mental health issues that comes along with that.
Yes. And expose myself to bullying.
Yes, that's right.
Around me who don't understand what's going on, because that can really exacerbate the situation considerably. Yes. And that often is the case, right? I mean, I find it so interesting. We live in a world that on one hand has become so much more inclusive. Look around, like there are so many things that have changed over the last 30, 40 years that were unthinkable when I grew up.
That's right.
And they are now totally normal. But on the other hand, bullying has, I know that I was bullied as a teenager, because I just didn't fit in.
Yes.
I was the weird kid.
Yeah.
But it's nothing compared to what kids go through these days, because there was no social media at that time. If somebody bullied me, it was in person.
That's right.
I was able to have some recourse and say, just bugger off.
Yeah.
But now with social media and with people, again, you get the 500 likes for a disparaging comment. It's so much more impactful and so much more risky.
Yes, and I think that's where, parents need to instill some boundaries in the household about the use of social media, to help protect their kids from this. And the bullying, out there is very high, and it has led to some deaths of some very young people. It's tragic. And so that's where boundaries become so important. Around the use of social media and devices and online behaviours. I remember teaching my own kids. I saw my son liking a post where one of his mates was calling the teacher a lesbian. And I said, we're going to remove the like. Okay, you're not going to be in the group of people who likes that comment. And we chatted about why. And he sort of rolled his eyes and said, yeah, all right, Mum. And I said, well, it's not fair for him to label her. He doesn't know. And he is using it as a derogatory term. So we're not going to go there. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you have to set, and then that can affect her mental health. So again, it's a boundary about mental health. Yeah.
So we need to set mental health boundaries in pretty much in every area of our life.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, I have this concept of the conversation about the conversation. And I always think it's really important that we talk to people how we want to love and how we want to be loved.
Yes.
And how we want to engage with people and what are our limitations. Like for me, for example, I had a really busy social weekend.
Yes.
Like it was wonderful. But I had an event on this week that would have required me to socialize again to the same extent, and I couldn't do it.
No,
it was too much. And years ago, I would have dragged myself there, and I would have probably spent a day in bed afterwards because I was exhausted. And now I just go, you know what? I'm just not doing this. I'm taking care of myself. Yeah. But again, if people don't know how to manage that, they will burn out, and burnout is a really big problem these days.
And they'll push themselves to the limit. They don't know when to stop. And then then they're ill, and then they're in bed for a week, so yeah.
And if they had set that up with the family around them or the people around them, they go, what's going on with you? Just, pull yourself together, get up again and keep going. But again, life is changing and moving so fast. Our brains and our nervous system is just not equipped to deal with it.
No, that's right. We're quite wired in some ways, many of us. I watch the young people just constantly, and I'm on my phone too much. And that's a boundary that I am setting every day for myself. I've put an alarm on my phone to tell me when time's up, and I've chosen 2 hours during the course of the day and night. So and I've allowed my partner to chip me if he sees me sort of scrolling. So I've instilled an external boundary there, but it's all part of the strategy. But I see the young ones on there and they're just buried and scroll, ting, ting, ting. And that's an addiction in itself.
Absolutely.
Which can lead to mental health issues.
Yeah. And if you take that together with the fact that we're not really listening to each other anymore, because our ability to focus has gone down so considerably that we can't focus for more than 9 seconds without getting immediately distracted.
Yeah, apparently.
It's one of those things. If you can't grab someone in the first second, you've lost it.
Yes. How sad is that?
Yeah. So not being listened to, not being heard. And I did a whole talk about that with Alan Stevens in an early video. It's just one of those things that also contribute to mental health, because when our need for being heard is not being met, that is devastating. We are wired for connection, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, when you're out with someone and perhaps having a meal or coffee or something, and the other person is looking at their phone, that's a boundary that we need to set. And again, it all leads to mental health, doesn't it? I need to feel comfortable that we're having a conversation. I need to be able to say, how about we pop our phones down? And that's almost passive aggressive, but you've got to find your own way of stating that boundary.
I think it's okay to say, can we put our phones down? I actually have something I'd like to talk to you about.
Yes.
And again, that's that vulnerability. But if somebody is always on the phone and doesn't let go, I don't want to share with them.
Well, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Because you won't be heard, or you won't feel that you're being heard. Yeah.
And then we put the boundaries in place, because then it's also, I should not have this issue. I should be ashamed of this. And again, well, the more we talk about this, Sharon, the more I realize that mental health underpins everything.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a whole cycle of, you know, feeling well, feeling happy, feeling anxious, feeling depressed, feeling rock bottom. How do we, you know, climb back up to a place of happiness and joy? And it's about finding the strategies that work for us, as well as the boundaries, you know, and what works for me, what makes me feel joyous. You know, is it out walking in the bush? Is it listening to classical music? You know, it might be eating an ice cream, but that is always going to be short-lived. Whereas if I go for a walk in the bush this morning, that feeling can stay with me all day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it doesn't involve sugar. So
That's right. Yeah.
which can impact mental health.
Yes. Well, apparently sugar can be just as dangerous to us as alcohol or drugs.
Yep.
It is a drug. It is a drug, you know, and we don't realize that it's in everything. And, you know, we've trained our bodies, our minds, our guts to look for that sugar fix. So it's about, finding ways to come off that too.
Yeah. So basically, in summary, if people really want to know what to do about mental health, your 50 ways to get your happy face emoji book would be a really good way.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah. So I came from a place, as I say, very rock bottom after my divorce, and alone in my unit, and pretty messed up, drinking and self-sabotaging. And now I've written a book about the strategies that helped me to come from that place. So when people say to me, "Oh, there's nothing I can do about it," you know, I very gently say, "Well, actually, I've got a few ideas." So I wrote the book. Emoji is an acronym, EMOJI. You might be able to see on the chart behind me. Energy, exercise, mindfulness, meditation, a whole bunch of strategies that we've heard of, but we don't necessarily practice. What is this meditation and how do you do it? And does it really make a difference? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a lot of tools. We just don't recognize that they are necessarily as mental health tools.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And they will improve mental health tenfold. Yeah. But with the proviso that if you have some really deep trauma, family issues, something from your childhood, whatever it might be, that's when we need professional help to work through those issues, because no amount of writing gratitudes or sitting meditating will help if you have some really deep, but as long as people understand that, if you're just dealing with mild anxiety and depression, these tools will be amazing.
Now, I don't want to take away from the effect of medication and the importance of medication, but a lot of people now go to the doctor to get antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication when they are often just part of life. And I don't want to minimize that at all. Most of the antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications are prescribed by GPs.
Yes.
And they are not trained psychologists. And they often prescribe these medications when, after a 5-minute consult, because somebody says, I'm really depressed. So again, I think educating ourselves around what is depression, what is anxiety, what are these symptoms of depression when it's gone too far, too long, too high, too low, and really knowing what that means, and then going and getting help for that, but not necessarily medicating immediately, because we've got so many tools available that help us shift out of that. We've got a fabulous pharmacy inside of our body. If we just shift our attitude, we just use some tools and we ask for help, we connect with people, things can change radically.
Yes, that's right. And so it's almost like a multifaceted problem where, yes, you may need medication, but if we can solve it with other simple tools, that would be ideal, because the medications are very hard to come off. And I speak from firsthand experience. The body starts to rely on them, and then you take it away. It's very, very difficult. It's a very slow, challenging process. So if you can stay off them, that's ideal. If you need them, you need them. I probably wouldn't be here without them, to be honest, but I have since learned the natural wellness strategies.
Yeah. Well, so takeaway for everybody hopefully is there are lots of ways to deal with mental health issues, and being mindful of it while you have it is probably the best way to deal with it before it becomes something that really does need medication. And again, there are so many different tools. So talk to people, find your tribe, get clear on the fact that everybody has anxiety and everybody has depression, and that we can all help each other and we can help ourselves.
Beautiful. Yes. Great words. And the boundaries are such a big part of this.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you. No, it was great to be here. It's always good to have a chat, and I love learning more about, different aspects of wellness and life.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everybody for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time. And in the meantime, please subscribe, and so you get the little bell that tells you there's another video coming. Thank you.